What's a myth or misunderstanding people have about payroll? What's a myth or misunderstanding people have about payroll?
I mean, I think part of it is like
Your iceberg.
the iceberg thing I was talking about earlier. I think it's kind of that, just to repeat it, but that it's just about the net pay calculation.
Yeah.
That's kind of where the story ends. I think that's maybe the first myth.
Yeah.
It's just, if I know the inputs for payroll run, hours of commission and whatever you might have, salary, and then I know how to calculate the taxes based off of the jurisdictions, that's kind of the end of the story for payroll.
Yeah.
When there's obviously a lot more to it. So that's kind of one common myth.
Yeah.
What else?
Nothing sounds right. I'm happy to leave it here with the iceberg example.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings. I think I'm just thinking like through the integration calls that I have with partners. We were just talking to a partner yesterday and they're like, well, why do I have to have employees on a pay schedule? What's the relevance? I just want to pay people on any dates. And it's like, listen, you can pay people on any dates, but the frequency on which a worker gets paid affects their taxability.
Yeah.
And technically you can change people's pay schedules around, but like if you really read through the compliance guidelines from the IRS, you really shouldn't be doing that, right? Like,
you might be trying to avoid paying overtime, and so if you're going to do a transitional payroll run to make sure you're accounting everything correctly.
You shouldn't just be jumping around tax tables all the time, right?
I think people underestimate how complicated it could be. I mean, this is all kind of getting back to the iceberg, but it's an interesting thing because it's complicated and yet it's not complicated. When you abstract it up to how it's coming together, and you wave hands over some of the details, because a lot of complexity, obviously, you have 50 states with many locals and stuff. Like the concepts could be easy once you take the time to just absorb some of it, like walk through it. Like, okay, there's an employer portion and an employee portion, and there's these taxes are withheld, these are deductions, this is, these are inputs, these are outputs. It's going to go to a tax agency, it's going to go to a provider, like a benefits provider, whatever. What do I need in order to calculate? Well, I need the frequency of pay and this and that. Once you kind of like look at the map, I thought it was really easy to support it when I was in support, for example.
I think that it's obviously complex, but I don't think the complexity is in kind of like almost how you're talking about like a vertical slice, and for a given employer is not actually that complex.
No.
Once you understand like the elements and every pieces you talked about. I think for me, like what makes payroll complicated or complex is the long tail of use cases is really long. You get really far out the curve, and the reality is if you want to support everything, you got to support everything. This long curve of use cases is like they're all different eccentric little things that you need to handle for one reason or another. This might only make up 0.2% of your user base, but it's still a case you have to handle, or even 0.002% of your user case, and you still have to handle it, right? And so the complexity lies in the breadth, not in the depth necessarily, if I was going to describe it that way.
That's a good way to put it.
I'm going to use this to my own ends here and say, what's a misunderstanding people of a payroll? And I feel like this is more like I'm thinking about when I talk to partners, and I think it's getting easier now that we're a bit more established, but in the beginning, this was a challenge because we tried to do payroll run creation and the collection of the inputs for payroll run a bit differently than what everyone's asking for. And I guess, time will tell on whether or not we're right and if this is actually a better way. We are obviously convinced. But I think even in the beginning, it was, I'm not saying you took convincing, but it was kind of like this is a concept Juan and I and folks were kicking around, this pay stream concept that we have about how we collect inputs for payroll run. People kind of asked for, I want an API where I can just pass you all the inputs and run payroll. I want to create payroll run, here's all the inputs for the payroll run, and then you give me back a payroll run.
Yeah.
Which of course we support and totally makes sense, this kind of just-in-time creation of payroll run. And there's nothing wrong with it. But I think that it's almost a misunderstanding or a myth that that's like how it has to work. Like what you're doing by doing that is you actually are pushing a lot more of the knowledge about payroll onto the partner platform that's trying to build payroll with as little about payroll as possible, at least in our opinion. And so now all of a sudden they have to understand when is payroll going to be run. They almost have to manage the pay schedule and know about it on their side. And they need to then to collect all this stuff and send it. And if someone's then working on that draft and they decide to discard it, well then they have to send it again and they have to recreate this. If you want to have any other insights on the payroll data, you kind of have to send all this data over and call some insights. With Paystream, we kind of flipped the whole thing. And again, this is a bit from our experience, was just, okay, well, if I was building payroll, like I'm a giant company that has infinite money and I'm going to make a payroll department, I'm going to build it. But I already have timesheets and I already have commission or point of sale or whatever I have. I'm not going to build it this way. You know, I'm going to have some separate payroll team, some payroll service. They're going to build this out, and I'm going to have some sort of low coupled interaction between these things where I'm going to send the data that I have, time card edited, time card created, punch in, clock out, whatever. I'm going to send those as events on some sort of stream. As they happen.
You're not going to wait till the end of the pay period.
I might not even know they're relevant for payroll. Who cares? A time card was created, a time card was deleted, a time card was updated. You know, and these things are just happening as they happen. And then some payroll could be coming in and listening to these and be like, oh, I know that's relevant for payroll. Oh, okay, you know, a tree was cut down. I don't care about that event. But, you know, that time card was created. I care about that event. And so it's collecting those things in its Paystream, essentially. And then if anyone, from an embedded experience, from a dashboard application, from an API, anyone at any given time wants to create a payroll run or a worker payment for that worker, you give it the date range and it just pulls in all those things that have been collecting from an event stream.
Yeah.
And it can create the payroll run. Or if you don't even want to create a payroll run, but you want to preview what they would be, calculate their overtime ahead of time.
Estimate your next payroll cost.
Exactly. Give alerts about this next payroll cost.
Hey, overtime is getting to a threshold. You might want to...
Yeah. So kind of just like avoiding that, you know, moving away from this myth of like payroll run creation has to be this giant just-in-time. I send you all the data. This is one of those ones where, again, like I said, time will tell if we're right here, but I think it's one where the customer's telling you that's the solution they want, but you really kind of have to look at the problem and say, that's not... I will let you do it that way if you want, but I think there's maybe a better way, you know, and being able to provide that, I think is a cool one that I'm hoping we're right, and I think we are.
Time will tell. All right, well, Scott.
That's the end of the pile.
I can't see myself doing this without you.
Okay.
I'm really happy for all
I'm
the
happy you joined us. You actually joined like
I know.
a couple months after I
needed some convincing. It was...
I had to do a little convincing.
I thought it was a very big risk move to leave Intuit for something that was just an idea still.
I know, but now we have shirts.
It's pretty official.
40-something people in the other room building all this cool stuff while we are just in here chatting.
I think the magic moment for me was that first offsite where I was like, hey, I know you're still worried, but like, just come. We need someone to help us with some sessions, give some context that we don't have. Just consult a little bit, just for a couple of days. We'll cover the travel. I was like, okay, cool. Let me just kind of help.
I think we all knew that was going to happen.
Was that a sales pitch to join the team? I should have known.
That was a mind trick for sure. Yeah.
But I mean, seeing the magic and seeing how quick the team was moving and the excitement and the way we were working and like, by day 3, I think it was, like, I went up to him and John was like, give me a contract, let me review something. Getting to you, just remembering it.
No, it was cool. It was cool. I mean, honestly, I think the first one is cool, but I think, not to be cliche, but I think this one here has been really impactful for me. Like I said earlier, but just seeing the room full of people, like, I mean, we were joking the other day, but this first time we had to use microphones, right? Like,
I know.
And name tags, like, what comical milestones these are, but it's significant to us, right? But I think, I think just kind of having this whole team that's so excited to build it out is really inspiring, and not even jokingly, you know, you weren't here and people are just building something in the other room. You know, that wasn't the way it used to be. I'm not looking forward to not being involved. That's not what I'm saying, but it's just more really, really exciting to see how many more capable little units of people we have now that are just going to be diving into all these complex problems that we want to go into. And so I think this next year, you know, these next 4 quarters, it's going to be, I guess, mark the words, but I think it's going to be really cool to look in, you know, in 12 months, all the things that we're going to deliver.
We have the tape now.
Now we have the tape.
Yeah. Let's go for the Salsa archive.
Cool.
The journey.